Hi, I'm Martin Felsen. Welcome to City Design, where we explore how we shape cities and how cities shape us. This episode, Minoan Cities of Trade, the Labyrinth, the Library, and Atlantis, is the fourth in a series on city history. Last episode, we explored ancient Egyptian cities designed to transmit people into the afterlife. This episode explores civilizations that transmitted goods and ideas across the sea. The Minoan civilization thrived roughly between 3100 and 1100 BCE, around the time of Egypt and Mesopotamia. Based on the island of Crete, the Minoans were Europe's first advanced civilization. As daring sea traders, their influence extended across the Aegean. They possessed the first great naval fleets, moving people and goods across an archipelago of island cities, each protected by the expansive sea. The Minoans were named after a Greek myth, the myth of Queen Pasiphae of Crete, who falls in love with a bull. But before we get to modern interpretations of that ancient story, let's start closer to the very beginning with one of Greek mythology's earliest architects, Daedalus. Daedalus was a great builder, a great maker. Among his creations were wings for his son Icarus, so that Icarus could fly. But on a flight toward the sun, the wings, made of feathers and wax, melted, and Icarus plunged into the sea. Renaissance artist Peter Bruegel captured the scene in this painting. It's a remarkable illustration. Life leisurely unfolding as the epic failure of human hubris plunges into the water. But Queen Pasiphae considered Icarus's flight a noble failure. So she commissioned Daedalus for another project, a hollow wooden cow, a kind of Trojan horse. She would climb inside to mate with a divine white bull that she had fallen in love with. Consequently, the queen gave birth to a minotaur, an unnatural hybrid with a human body and a bull's head. The myth of Queen Pasiphae has fascinated artists for millennia. Here's one of Picasso's illustrations that explores the myth of the Minotaur. Because the Minotaur enjoyed eating people, Daedalus was asked to build a labyrinth to imprison him. A winding, confusing maze designed to hide the deadly offspring, protect the people of Crete, and prevent the Minotaur's escape. In the ancient myth, the labyrinth and the Minotaur were in a palace in Crete. So in 1900, when Sir Arthur Evans, an Indiana Jones-style archaeologist, excavated a real palace on the island of Crete, he connected what he found directly to the ancient Greek myth. Because what he found was a sprawling, labyrinthian ruin, hundreds of interconnected rooms and bull-related art everywhere. The modern archaeologist thought he might have discovered the literal home of the Minotaur. So he named the civilization Minoan after King Minos of the Greek myth. Let's look at the key connections between myth and modern excavation. The palace at Knossos has an intricate design, winding passages on multiple levels which do resemble a labyrinth. Evans discovered several impressive bullhorns and horns of consecration, which he hoped was historical evidence of the mythical half-man, half-bull creature. The discovery of a throne room with an unusual stone seat led Evans to conclude that King Minos had ruled here, linking the mythological royal line to the archaeological record. Archaeologists also found the double-axe symmetrical symbol, the labrys, carved and displayed throughout the palace walls. The labrys likely gave the labyrinth its name. But Evans surely knew that Knossos wasn't the only labyrinth built in ancient times. This Egyptian labyrinth had been studied by historians for millennia, a multifunctional small city, palace, and tomb. After touring Egypt in the 5th century BCE, Herodotus wrote that the labyrinth surpasses even the pyramids. The mazy passages are an unending marvel. Today, about 100 years after Evans' initial dig, we have a much more practical interpretation of Minoan architecture and the Palace of Knossos. The large courtyard at the heart of Knossos is thought to have hosted large-scale, semi-public civic ceremonies. Many of the rooms were likely workshops, where craftsmen and artists worked on their trade, producing Minoan exports, olive oil, wine, pottery, all under the administration of the king. The invention of the written Minoan linear language is linked to the rise of the palace and its economic productivity. The palace controlled production and trade from the top down, a model that would persist until the Greeks moved commerce into the public square. A final note about the Labyrinth, which has a long, intriguing history. During the Middle Ages, Christian tradition adopted the shape, embedding labyrinths in cathedral floors as a substitute for pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Walking the single, winding path represented the hard path to God, a journey of spiritual devotion. Today, the labyrinth endures as a metaphor for the complicated history of the city itself, a deliberate rejection of clarity, an embrace of the fragmentation and disorder that define urban life, especially in modern times. During the 3rd millennium BCE, Crete sat at the center of an extensive trading network, dealing in copper from the Cyclades and tin from Anatolia. These materials were essential for producing bronze, a commodity that fueled Minoan civilization. And with cypress forests providing timber to build the Minoan fleet, great palaces began to rise on Crete in the 2nd millennium BCE. With Knossos as the capital, a network of palace cities spread across the Cretan archipelago. Phaistos, Mallia, Zakros. Each palace served its surrounding region, but all were linked by trade and administration. This was network urbanism, a web of interdependent cities exporting goods and importing luxuries centuries before the Greeks. Minoans developed a distinctive organic design sensibility. Where Egyptian architecture and art favored the orthogonal grid, Minoans favored curvilinear form. The snake goddess figurines, among the most iconic artifacts of the ancient world, represent a female divinity at the center of Minoan spiritual life. Their bell-shaped, canonical forms are repeated throughout Minoan art. In this octopus vase, curvilinear forms of the sea wrap a bulging vessel. And on these interior walls of the Palace of Knossos, the same sensibility is translated from art to architecture, painted in the flowing forms drawn from nature. These forms reflect the shape of water, smooth, ever-swirling, continuous surfaces and volumes. An interesting discovery at Knossos is the almost modern-looking facade and window. Here, Minoan architecture leaves behind the dark, windowless dwellings of the ancient world. These window openings likely contained some substitute for transparent glass, in extraordinary anticipation of modern architecture. That anticipation extended to infrastructure. At Knossos, Minoans designed tapered terracotta pipes that narrowed at one end to increase water pressure, a principle still used in plumbing today. The palace had sophisticated drainage channels, rainwater collection systems, and what may be the earliest known flush toilets. And one brief caveat about some design examples at Knossos. The archaeologist Arthur Evans unearthed only fragments of structures and frescoes. He had column bases and column tops, but much in between had to be creatively extrapolated. In this bull-leaping fresco, these small patches of material are what survived in the ruins. Everything else is Evans' interpretation of what the painting might have looked like. Same with the maidens. Small patches of pale material are the original fresco. The rest is reconstruction, puzzled together. Historically, great cities like Knossos have acted as catalysts, connecting distant cultures, trading goods, welcoming new people with new skills, and helping to expand empires. Port cities like Venice and Alexandria controlled vital trade routes. At different times, each became a center of cultural exchange and wealth. Let's take a closer look at Alexandria, a port city that replaced the inland capital of Memphis as the seat of ancient Egyptian power. Alexandria served as the premier intellectual, commercial, and maritime hub of the Mediterranean for centuries. As Knossos had done in an earlier era, Alexandria became a bridge between Egypt and the wider Mediterranean world. Successful port cities trade both cargo and information. In Alexandria, these exchanges took a classic architectural form, the library. The Library of Alexandria was, in its time, the center of science and learning in the ancient world. It was the first true research institute in history. It contained laboratories, a museum, even a zoo with animals from across the known world. And books. At its peak, the library may have held 500,000 scrolls. Library officials combed the known cultures to find and acquire books and knowledge. They sent agents abroad to purchase entire libraries. Merchant ships docking in the harbor were searched for scrolls. Texts were borrowed, copied by hand, and returned. Until they were studied and cataloged, these scrolls were gathered in great triangular stacks called books from the ships. This library in this city is when and where we first systematically gathered and stored what the world knew and how it came to know it. Dozens of influential scholars made hundreds of fundamental discoveries in the library. Euclid studied the foundational principles of geometry essential for architectural design and city planning. Archimedes advanced principles of physics and the mechanical engineering of building structures. The library is an essential phase in the story of knowledge and power. What had once been monopolized by kings of the citadel was now part of a public institution, accessible, cataloged, and shared. It was, in a sense, a democratization of knowledge centuries before democracy itself fully formed. The library contained and transmitted human experience better than any individual memory ever could. The city, as Emerson said, lives by remembering. Translating ideas into physical institutions, like the library, is one of the prime functions of the city. On any given day, the waterfront of Alexandria was filled with merchants, citizens, and visitors. The harbor was overseen by the Pharos of Alexandria, the monumental lighthouse, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Rising roughly 300 to 400 feet, it guided ships with light and smoke into Alexandria's busy harbor, a monument to the ingenuity of the city and its people. In both Alexandria and Knossos 1,000 years before it, the Greek word cosmopolitan, combining cosmos and polis, described a citizen of the world. The loudest sound ever recorded on Earth was the eruption of Krakatoa in 1883. The sound waves circled the globe several times. The volcano that exploded in the 16th century BCE on the island of Thera, part of the ancient Minoan archipelago, is believed to have been 4 times as devastating as Krakatoa. The bay at the center of the island today is the caldera left behind by that eruption. The blast destroyed several Minoan cities on nearby islands. Resulting earthquakes and tsunamis battered Crete. The eruption buried cities and killed thousands. It damaged cities along Minoan trade routes, crippling Crete economically and accelerating the civilization's collapse. The city of Akrotiri on Thera was instantly buried under ash, preserving its ruins much like Pompeii. Excavations in the 1960s and 70s unearthed a wealthy city with distinctive Minoan features like multi-story buildings lining paved streets and public squares suggesting organized civic life. Palace walls still hold colorful frescoes of preserved natural scenes and wild animals of the time. Stories of Minoan destruction are believed to have inspired the legend of the lost city of Atlantis. Plato introduced Atlantis in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias around 360 BCE as a warning about human hubris and moral decay. Atlantis's founders, Plato wrote, were half god and half human. They created a utopian civilization and became a great naval power, peaceful, wealthy, and guarded by the sea god Poseidon. The islands they built were ringed by wide, concentric moats and linked by bridging walkways. The islands were filled with exotic wildlife. On the central island was an elevated capital where a palace was built for Poseidon's mortal wife, Plato. Plato wrote that the Atlanteans attempted to conquer the Mediterranean, but were defeated by a fictionalized ancient Athens, a city overseen by the gods. Due to their arrogance and impiety, the gods punished the Atlanteans, plunging their island into the Labyrinthian Sea in a single day and night of violent earthquakes and floods. Plato's Atlantis was meant as a moral lesson, a story about both utopia and the labyrinth. Where utopia is a state of perfect, even static happiness, a permanent good place, the labyrinth represents the complexities of reality and some of the world's inescapable traps. Atlantis was both, a utopia that fell into the labyrinth. And so were some Minoan cities, swallowed by the very waters that enabled their civilization to thrive. Despite its abrupt end, the influence of the Minoans survived. Their vibrant culture made a lasting impact on the rising new regional power of the time, the Mycenaean Greeks, who honored King Minos in Crete in their mythology. And their Cretan writing system, adopted by the Mycenaeans, would become the basis for the Greek language in which countless thinkers and artists composed the masterpieces we still read today. In the next episode, we'll explore the ancient acropolis of Mycenaean and Greek cities. Thanks for watching City Design. See you next time as we keep exploring how we shape cities and how cities shape us.